She told the entire party, "Don't worry about inviting Nathan. He is just my placeholder until someone better comes along." Everyone heard it. I just quietly finished my drink and left. 3 months later, she discovered that someone better had been using the exact same playbook on her. I am 29M and this happened 8 months ago, but I am finally ready to share because the poetic justice was so perfectly devastating that I still cannot believe life wrote this script. Some background first. I had been dating Vivian, 27F, for 18 months. We met through mutual friends at a rooftop barbecue in July 2 years ago. The chemistry was immediate and electric. She walked in wearing this flowing sundress that caught the golden hour light perfectly, and when she laughed at something our friend Marcus said, I knew I had to talk to her. Vivian is stunning in that effortless way that makes other women simultaneously admire and resent her. She has this confidence that fills a room, the kind that comes from knowing you are beautiful and smart, and that doors open for you because of it. She works in marketing for Lux & Company, one of those luxury brands that sells $300 candles to people who want to signal their sophistication. Her Instagram is a carefully curated gallery of aesthetic perfection, artfully arranged coffee cups, designer handbags, and herself looking impossibly put together in every photo. I am a mechanical engineer designing medical equipment for cardiac devices. It is meaningful work that I am genuinely passionate about. Knowing that something I designed might help save someone's life gives me a sense of purpose. I cannot imagine finding anywhere else. The pay is solid, not spectacular, but enough to live comfortably, and occasionally splurge on things that matter to me. I drive a reliable Honda Civic, live in a clean but modest apartment, and my idea of a perfect weekend is hiking followed by cooking an elaborate meal while listening to vinyl records. Those first few months with Vivian were intoxicating. She would text me good morning messages with heart emojis. She would drag me to art gallery openings where I had watched her network effortlessly with people who owned pieces worth more than my annual salary. She introduced me to restaurants I had never heard of and wines I couldn't pronounce. I felt like I was being inducted into a world of sophistication I had always observed from the outside. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the comments started. It began with seemingly innocent observations. "Oh, your friend Tyler is a surgeon. That is amazing. Such important work." Or, "Madison's boyfriend just made partner at his law firm. Can you imagine the stress, but also the accomplishment?" These weren't necessarily comparisons, but I started to feel the weight of them. Then came the stories about her exes. Dr. Harrison, the cardiothoracic surgeon who had taken her to Barcelona for a long weekend. James, the corporate lawyer who had surprised her with courtside Lakers tickets. Marcus, different Marcus from our friend group, the investment banker who had bought her a vintage Chanel bag for their 6-month anniversary. Now they are break up. "I am not trying to make you feel bad," she would say when she caught my expression after these stories. "I just like sharing memories." These were important relationships that shaped who I am, but it felt like she was building a gallery of men who had set a standard I couldn't reach. Every gesture I made was unconsciously measured against ghosts of boyfriends, past who had bigger bank accounts and more prestigious careers. When I surprised her with a weekend getaway to Monterey, a beautiful bed and breakfast overlooking the ocean that I had researched for weeks and saved up for, she spent the drive home telling me about her friend Jessica's recent trip to the French Riviera. "The photos were just incredible," she said, scrolling through Instagram while I drove. "This infinity pool overlooking the Mediterranean. Can you imagine waking up to that view?" "The view from our room was pretty spectacular too," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Oh, absolutely. It was lovely. I am just saying, wouldn't it be amazing to experience something like that someday?" For her birthday, I bought her an elegant necklace from a local jewelry designer, a delicate piece with her birthstone that I thought perfectly captured her style. She loved it. Or at least she said she did. But 2 days later, she showed me the Tiffany bracelet her coworker Rachel had received from her boyfriend for their anniversary. "Look at this," she said, zooming in on Rachel's Instagram post. "The craftsmanship is just incredible. You can tell it is quality, you know? It is the kind of piece you pass down to your daughter." I started working extra consulting jobs on weekends. The engineering firm where I worked had overflow projects they would farm out to freelancers, and I began taking on as many as I could handle. I told myself it was about building our future together, but really, I was trying to afford the lifestyle that seemed to make Vivian happy. I researched expensive restaurants and made reservations weeks in advance. I learned about wine pairings and started buying bottles that cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a week. I bought a new wardrobe because Vivian had made increasingly pointed comments about my casual style being inappropriate for the events we attended together. "You know, I love you exactly as you are," she would say. "But first impressions matter so much in my industry. I just want you to feel confident around my colleagues." The truth was, I would never felt less confident in my life. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, anxious, constantly second-guessing myself, perpetually worried that I wasn't enough. The easy contentment I had always found in simple pleasures was replaced by a grinding need to prove myself worthy of her affection. My friends started commenting on the change. Marcus pulled me aside after a group dinner where I had barely spoken. "Dude, what is going on with you? You seem stressed all the time lately. Just work stuff." I lied. Busy season, but it wasn't work. It was the exhausting mental load of constantly trying to measure up to standards that seemed to shift every time I thought I was getting close. Looking back, I realized I had stopped being Nathan somewhere along the way. I would become this anxious, constantly trying to prove himself version of myself that I barely recognized. I'd wake up in the morning, and my first thought would be about what I could do that day to make Vivian happier, more proud to be with me, more confident that I was worthy of her time. The breaking point came at Madison's engagement party. Madison had been one of Vivian's best friends since college, and her engagement to Derek was the social event of the season in their circle. The party was at Zenith, this upscale rooftop bar downtown with a view of the city skyline and craft cocktails that cost more than most people spend on lunch. I had bought a new suit specifically for the occasion, a charcoal gray Tom Ford that cost more than my monthly car payment, because Vivian had made pointed comments about my usual wardrobe being too casual for her circle. She had helped me pick it out, and I had felt good about the purchase until I saw the final price tag. "You look so handsome," she had said as we got ready that evening. "See how much more confident you look in something well-tailored." The party started well. Vivian was in her element, working the room with the kind of social grace that made networking look effortless. I watched her hug Madison, compliment other women's dresses with what seemed like genuine enthusiasm, and charm the men with insider knowledge about luxury brands and upcoming fashion trends. For the first hour, I felt like I belonged. I had interesting conversations about medical device innovation with Derek's brother, who worked in healthcare investment. I made Madison laugh with a story about an engineering mishap at work. I felt like the version of myself that Vivian fell for that first night at the barbecue. About 2 hours in, I was standing near the bar ordering our second round of drinks when I heard Vivian's voice carry over the ambient music and chatter. She was talking to a small group of her girlfriends, Madison, Jessica, and a woman named Stephanie, who worked in pharmaceutical sales. They were discussing upcoming social events. Apparently there was a wedding in wine country next month, followed by a charity gala. Then Madison's own wedding in the spring. "So many events to coordinate," Jessica was saying. "Should we all book the same hotel for the Sonoma wedding?" "Definitely," Madison replied. "It will be like a girls' weekend." "What about +1s though? Should we include Nathan on the group reservation?" That is when Vivian laughed. A light, dismissive sound that I had never heard her make before. "Don't worry about inviting Nathan. He is just my placeholder until someone better comes along." The words hit me like a physical blow. The conversation around her stopped completely. Several people glanced in my direction, their expressions ranging from shock to uncomfortable embarrassment. I felt my face burn with humiliation, but I forced myself to stay calm and finish ordering our drinks. "Vivian," Madison started, her voice uncertain. "What? I am just being honest. He is a sweet guy, but let's be realistic about what this is." I took a deep breath, picked up both drinks, and walked back over to the group. My heart was pounding, but my hands were surprisingly steady. I handed Vivian her wine and smiled pleasantly at everyone. "Thanks for including me tonight, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the evening." Then I looked directly at Vivian and said quietly, "I am going to head home. You can catch a ride with Madison, right?" She looked confused and annoyed, as if I was disrupting something important. "Nathan, we just got here. Don't be dramatic." "I am not being dramatic. I am being efficient. No point in a placeholder taking up space. I watched the realization hit her face as she understood that I had heard exactly what she said. But instead of looking embarrassed or apologetic, she just rolled her eyes like I was being unreasonable. "We will talk about this later," she said dismissively, already turning back to her friends. "No," I replied calmly. "We really will not." I left the party, drove home through the surprisingly light Friday night traffic, and spent the rest of the evening sitting on my couch, staring at the wall, trying to process what had just happened. The humiliation stung, but more than that, I felt a strange sense of clarity washing over me like cold water. For 18 months, I had been trying to be good enough for someone who saw me as temporary and disposable. I had been auditioning for a role in a play where I was never meant to be the leading man. Update 1 posted 3 weeks after the original Reddit. I wasn't planning to update so soon, but the response was overwhelming. Thank you to everyone who reached out. Many asked what happened after I left the party. So here is the aftermath. When Vivian got home around midnight, she tried to brush it off as a minor misunderstanding. I was reading a book I had abandoned months ago because she found fiction unproductive. "You completely overreacted," she said. "What I said was just girl talk. We say things we don't mean. If you didn't mean it, why did you say it? And why did everyone look shocked? They don't understand our relationship. You are secure enough to handle a little teasing. You told your friends not to include me because I am temporary. That is teasing." The conversation lasted 10 minutes before I realized we were having 2 different discussions. She was minimizing what happened. I was addressing a fundamental lack of respect. "I think we should take a break," I said. "A break over this. You are being controlling and insecure. This is exactly why I question our compatibility." Even then, she made it my fault. "Maybe you are right. Maybe we are not compatible," she agreed, clearly thinking I would come crawling back within a week. I didn't. The first few weeks were liberating. I hadn't realized how much energy I had spent trying to meet her shifting expectations. I rejoined my softball league, which I had quit because games conflicted with her networking events. My teammate Jake was thrilled. "We have been getting crushed without our first baseman." "What happened to you?" "I forgot who I was for a while," I said. "But I am remembering. I started cooking elaborate meals again, picked up my guitar after Vivian called it hobby-ish, and returned to reading fiction instead of business books I thought would impress her. I said yes to social invitations based on what sounded fun, not what would enhance my image." Vivian reached out several times, first with casual messages, "Saw this article about cardiac devices, and thought of you." When I didn't respond enthusiastically, she shifted to longer explanations about being taken out of context and missing what we had. When that failed, she tried making me jealous with stories about exclusive events and gallery openings. I read her messages but rarely responded. Engaging felt like stepping backward into a dynamic I had escaped. About a month later, Marcus called with news. He had seen Vivian at a networking event with someone new, Blake, who worked in private equity and drove an expensive Tesla. "She seemed aggressively happy," Marcus said. "Made sure to mention how successful he is. She asked about you, though." I felt a small pang, but the dominant emotion was relief. She had found her upgrade, and I was free to discover who I was without constantly measuring up to someone else's standards. 2 weeks later, I had my first date with Elena, a high school history teacher. When my friend Sarah suggested we might hit it off, I almost said no out of habit. During my relationship with Vivian, I had evaluated every social interaction through the lens of status advancement, but something made me say yes. We met at a small bookstore, Elena suggested. She arrived in comfortable clothes, carrying a book she was excited to discuss. We talked for 3 hours about everything: her teaching, my engineering work, hiking, books, even our different opinions on scrambled eggs. Elena laughed at my engineering stories with genuine delight rather than polite tolerance. When I mentioned playing guitar in college, she lit up. "Why did you stop?" "I guess I got out of the habit." "You should start again. Life's too short not to do things that make you happy." Such a simple comment, but it highlighted something I had lost with Vivian, the idea that my happiness had value in itself, not just as it related to someone else's approval. When Elena said she should head home to prepare lessons, I realized I hadn't checked my phone once. I hadn't worried about saying the right thing or making the right impression. I had just been myself. And somehow, that was enough. Walking home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in almost 2 years. Genuine excitement about getting to know someone better, with no anxiety about whether I was worthy of their attention. Update 2 Reddit. You are not going to believe the update I have for you. The universe has a sense of justice that would make the best screenplay writers jealous. Elena and I have been seeing each other for 6 weeks now, and it has been a revelation. Everything that felt like work with Vivian feels effortless with Elena. She celebrates my successes without comparisons, appreciates thoughtful gestures regardless of price, and seems genuinely proud to be with me. Last weekend, Elena came to my softball game. Vivian had never attended once, always having more important things to do. Elena showed up with iced coffee, asked questions about strategy, and cheered enthusiastically. "You are completely different when you are playing," she said afterward. "More confident, more yourself. It is beautiful to watch." I had forgotten what it felt like to be fully myself without performance anxiety. While planning a low-key weekend trip with Elena over dinner at my apartment, Madison called with news about Vivian. "Vivian's relationship with Blake has imploded spectacularly," Madison said. "Here is what happened. Blake had been dating multiple women simultaneously, treating them all as casual arrangements while lavishing them with expensive dates and gifts. Vivian discovered this when she surprised him at his apartment and found another woman's belongings everywhere. When Blake came home and found Vivian going through the other woman's things, he was genuinely confused about her anger. "I never said we were exclusive," he told her. "I have been very clear I am not looking for anything serious." When Vivian demanded to know why he had been taking her on romantic trips if he wasn't serious, Blake delivered the killing blow. "Vivian, you were never anything special to me. You were just convenient until someone more interesting came along." Madison paused. "He used almost the exact same words she used about you, Nathan." The irony was perfect, but it got worse. Vivian showed up at Blake's office the next day, causing a scene when security wouldn't let her up. Blake's company did business with luxury brands, including where Vivian worked. Word spread fast, and her boss demoted her to a department with less client interaction. "She has been asking about you lately," Madison added. "I think she is finally realizing what she lost." 2 weeks later, I was having my weekly solo dinner at Lucia's, a small Italian place I had discovered after the breakup. I had started this Thursday tradition because Vivian always wanted somewhere more upscale. While reading and enjoying my meal, I spotted Vivian at the bar alone and looking deflated despite her expensive clothes. When she saw me, she came over. "Nathan? Hi, are you here alone?" "Yeah, it has become a nice weekly tradition. I really enjoy it." She looked confused. "You eat dinner out by yourself?" "On purpose." "Of course. Great food. Good book. No pressure. It is perfect." She sat down uninvited and apologized for the party comment and how she had treated me. I was hoping we could try again. "I have learned a lot about myself. I appreciate the apology, but I am not interested in trying again." "Is it because of someone else?" "It is because of me. I learned that I don't need someone else to validate my worth. I am genuinely happy with my life exactly as it is." "But don't you get lonely?" "Sometimes. But I have learned the difference between being alone and being lonely. I spent 18 months with you feeling lonelier than I ever do now." "I see you differently now," she said quietly. "I appreciate you now. Maybe you do. But I needed to learn to appreciate myself first. I like who I am when I am not trying to be enough for someone else." Final update Reddit. This will be my final update to this story. 6 months have passed since I first posted about being called a placeholder, and I wanted to share how everything has evolved. That conversation with Vivian at Lucia's was the last time we spoke. Through Madison, I heard that Vivian eventually found someone new, a high school teacher named David, who apparently adores her and treats her well, despite everything. I hope she is genuinely happy and learned something from her experience with Blake. Elena and I moved in together last month. The process was effortless. No drama, No negotiations about whose stuff was nicer. We just reached a point where spending nights apart felt unnecessary. The difference between my relationships is stark. With Vivian, I was constantly trying to figure out what was wrong, what I needed to fix to earn her affection. With Elena, I feel valued for exactly who I am. She laughs at my engineering jokes. She is proud to introduce me to people, and when she talks about our future, it is with excitement rather than resignation. Elena surprised me by signing us up for an open mic night. She had remembered my mention of playing guitar in college and had been encouraging me to start again. The old me would have panicked about not being good enough. But I played 2 songs that night and felt like myself for the first time in years. A local music teacher even asked me to play at her house concerts. Elena attends my softball games now, bringing homemade cookies and keeping stats in a notebook. She organized a celebration when we won our division championship. With Vivian, my interests were tolerated. With Elena, they are celebrated. When I met Elena's parents, a retired carpenter and former elementary school teacher, her mother said something that stuck with me. It is so nice to see Elena with someone who appreciates her for who she is. Elena later told me about her ex who constantly pushed her to be more ambitious and thought teaching was beneath her. He eventually left her for a lawyer who then left him for a senior partner. Both of us had experienced being with people who saw us as stepping stones. I love that we are both here because we want to be, Elena said. Not because we are settling or waiting for something better. I have learned that self-respect isn't just about standing up to poor treatment. It is about believing you deserve better in the first place. For too long, I had accepted crumbs from Vivian because I thought that is all I deserved. The placeholder comment hurt because it revealed how she saw me. But it also woke me up to the fact that I was settling for someone who didn't value what I brought to the relationship. Last week, while cooking dinner together, Elena said something that perfectly captured this experience. I am so glad you learned to value yourself. Because if you hadn't, you might have stayed with someone who didn't deserve you, and I never would have gotten the chance to love the real you. Looking back, Vivian was right about one thing. I was a placeholder. But not for someone better than me. I was a placeholder for the person I became after I learned to value myself properly. And Elena, she got the real thing. 6 months ago, I thought my story was about being humiliated and rejected. Now I know it was about clearing space for something real. The universe really does have a sense of justice. Reddit. Sometimes it just takes a while to see the bigger picture.